So I suck at 3D animating, and what better way to improve my skills than attempting to animate some of the hardest movements in animation. So let's start with the walk cycle. I already have all my characters that I want to use for this video, and I thought for this walk cycle I want to go with kind of a character that I could put some emotion with. So I chose Miguel O'Hara from the Spider-Verse films, because he's just a cool dude. I also don't want to spend too long on any of these because it's just for practice, so I'm giving myself maximum of 1 day to finish each of these movements. So with that in mind, let's begin this challenge number 1. I think notoriously the walk cycle is known to be a hard movement because of the constantly changing weight distribution, just all the body parts that also move along with it when you're walking. Like when you step with one foot, your center of gravity moves to that foot, and this constant shift in a person's weight makes the walk cycle quite hard to animate. At least that's what I think. And even if you're not an animator, it's actually really easy to tell when a movement looks off. Maybe not because we are all aware of this specific animation changes in specific bones when walking, but I think it's more so because we all see it in a day-to-day basis. So when something looks off from the norm, it's just super easy to notice. So this was my number 1 goal in this walk cycle, to make it look natural and not super robotic like. And then aside from just getting the natural movements of the walk cycle right, every character also walks completely different, because no two humans have the exact same personality, and I feel like a walk helps to kind of express this personality. And Miguel is this big, broad, buff dude, and I kind of want to portray that a bit in his walk. So I made his movements a bit more exaggerated, and I kind of did this with moving his shoulders more to kind of show off his broad build. Was this a good idea? Honestly, I can't really tell if it looks good or not, but to be honest, I'm just gonna go with it. So when animating, I really like to focus on focusing on one bone at a time. For example, just looking at the legs first, and then not worrying about the arms or shoulders at all. And then I just kept repeating this after. So once I finished the legs, I'd move on to the shoulders, the arms, and then kind of just refine it all once put together. I just find doing it one at a time is a little less overwhelming in a way, so it's just a lot easier for me to actually keep animating and not get burnt out. So yeah, after finishing the animation, I put Miguel into a quick scene, just because it looked a little bit empty, and I wanted him to kind of look like he was walking in the Spider-Verse world. So this is how the animation just looks itself, the basic walk cycle. And then this is how it looks after rendering it with the scene. So overall, the walk cycle wasn't too bad, I think. What I struggled with the most though was probably just the movement of the arms, because they kept looking really robotic, and I think the major difference I found that really helped me was that when you move your arms forward, when you're walking, they don't go exactly in a straight line when you walk. And they oftentimes come up a little in front of your body actually a bit, so I think this idea definitely helped to make it look more natural. Okay, so now moving on to challenge number 2. Let's do some facial expressions. Facial expressions are known to be very difficult. Maybe not because they are hard to get the movement right, like walking, but it's hard to make all the movement in a way that looks real and authentic. I feel like it's just also like walking, it's super obvious when something looks fake, especially with facial expressions. I don't have too much experience either with facial expressions, so I'm completely in the deep end here. I decided for this scene, the characters that I wanted to use were Jinx and Vi from Arcane, since the show has a lot of emotion and expressiveness to the characters. So when trying to think of what I wanted to make them say and do in the scene, I didn't really want to go one for one with the scene from the show, so I found this audio online that I think fits really well with the two characters.
Please, we don't want to hurt you. Hurt me? You will never hurt me again!
And I also use many references from the show still while animating. Okay, so now when animating this, I feel like there are overall 4 main components you want to get right first. Number 1, the jaw. Basically just making sure that the jaw moves the right amount when talking. You don't want to move the jaw so much that it looks unnatural, and then not too little that it makes it look like they're not talking at all. And then number 2, the lips. Making sure the lips actually match the words they are saying. For example, like when you say like the word two, you notice that your lips get scrunched up and your mouth is like an oval. While if you say the word like cheese, your lips go very wide. So making sure you get the lips correct as well is super important. And then number 3, the eyebrows. The eyebrows can show so much expression, so this is also really important. And finally, number 4, the eyes. Even if everything looks really good, if your character is looking the completely wrong direction or they're like cross-eyed or anything, I feel like it will just completely throw off the feeling of the entire animation. So with all these in mind, I started to get to work. The scene took a decent bit longer than the walk cycle because even though a lot of the times I actually wasn't really animating new poses or anything, it just took a lot of refining to each scene to make it look decent. Overall, it was actually quite fun to do, and just seeing the characters come to life was really rewarding for my efforts. I didn't really know what environment to put them in this scene, so I left the environment out this time. So this is how the scene looks non-rendered in just the animation. And then this is how the final render looks.
Please, we don't want to hurt you. Hurt me? Hurt me? You will never hurt me again! Please, we don't want to hurt you. Hurt me? Hurt me? You will never hurt me again!
Okay, for challenge number 3, initially I had the idea of going for a fight scene. But when I was starting to animate it, I just really had no motivation really to see the entire scene through. Also, I knew it would probably take a lot more time than the previous 2 scenes because to animate characters that are fighting, they need to interact with each other. And this in itself already seems like a very daunting thing and a much bigger project or a lot more time it would take me. So maybe for the future, I will dive back into this. So for challenge number 3 instead, I'm actually decided just to break down this Spider-Man scene I have been working on for the past week or so. Because I thought Spider-Man swinging and doing flips and all the cool things he does, I thought was also a pretty difficult movement, so it would kind of fit the idea of difficult animations to do. Okay, so now let's get actually more into the scene that I was working on. And I think the hardest part to animate in a Spider-Man swinging scene, at least for me, was getting the momentum and just the overall movement of Spider-Man to look like he's actually swinging. For example, the acceleration he gets when he flings himself forward, I found took me the longest to get right. And then also just trying to make the camera movement also fit it was especially hard. But overall, the approach I took for the scene was just to first block out his motion path, then start to add his key poses throughout the animation, and then followed by this, I just did the in-betweens to make it more fluid. Keep in mind, also, I was using many references throughout this, so by no means is this really my own original animation, it's more so just a recreation. And I think one huge thing I've learned in the past few projects of animating, and this one as well, is that the graph editor is your friend. I know it can look and seem very daunting, but it adds so much more to your animations. For example, let's take this circle, moving in a straight linear path. Yeah, pretty basic constant velocity movement, but change the graph a bit and you get an entire different feel to the movement. Take these for example. Was the circle pushed? What caused its acceleration? Wait, why is the circle starting off slow, then all of a sudden ramping up? Maybe it's just a slow starter, there was some mud in the way so it started off slow. See, just by changing the graph editor a bit, you can change completely how a regular movement looks into something with a lot more emotion and possibly storytelling along with it. So with all this in mind, it took me about 2 days or so to finish the entire animation. And then I moved on to creating the environment for this scene, which actually took a lot more longer than the animation itself. And I know this video is a lot about, or most are supposed to be focused on animation, but I'll just dive into the environment just a little bit. So like the animation, I started off with just the basic shapes of where the buildings would be. So this way I could get a good idea of how the camera should move throughout the scene. And then after blocking out the environment, I started to create all the buildings, windows, and also use some add-ons to help with the cars and people. And then to texture everything, I used a lot of noise textures, especially for the road and sidewalks, to get the more roughed out looking natural look. So yeah, with that in mind, this is just how the scene looks with Miles and no environment, just a straight animation. And now this is the scene with Miles and the environment. And this is the final render of the scene. Keep in mind, I took much longer on the scene than the walk cycle and facial expression scenes, because the Spider-Man swinging scene I was working on before I actually had this video idea. Overall, I took about 6 days or so on the Spider-Man swinging scene, and then only 1 day each for the facial expressions and walk cycle scene. So yeah, anyway, let me know which scene was your favorite, and yeah, thank you for watching.